The darkness of space tore open like fabric being ripped apart. One by one, massive warships emerged from the quantum tunnel, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Sol. Captain Hana stood on the bridge of Sentinel-9, watching her monitors as the enemy fleet materialized near the edge of the solar system. She counted the ships as they appeared. 100, 500, 1,000. The numbers kept climbing. How many? Asked Commander Daehyun beside her, his voice tight with tension. Over 10,000 ships, Hana replied quietly. She kept her face calm, but her hands gripped the edge of her console. The Veltharian Empire has come in force. The Veltharian Empire was known across the galaxy. For 300 years they had moved from star system to star system, conquering every civilization they found. 47 different species had fallen under their control. Their military tactics were brutal and efficient. They showed no mercy to those who resisted. On Moon Base Alpha, Admiral Kyung received the same reports. He sat in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the enemy fleet. His officers moved around him with quick, precise steps. Everyone knew what was coming. Send word to all defense stations, Kyung ordered. Battle stations. All personnel to their posts. A young lieutenant approached him nervously. Sir, our fleet stands at 800 ships. They have 10,000. The odds are, I know the odds, Kyung interrupted. His voice was not angry, just firm. Follow your orders. Across all communication channels, a message began broadcasting. It came from the Veltharian flagship, a massive vessel 3 times larger than any human ship. The message was cold and direct. People of Earth, the Veltharian Empire claims this system. You have 48 hours to surrender completely. Lower your shields. Power down your weapons. Prepare for occupation. If you resist, we will destroy your cities from orbit. Your species will serve the Empire or it will cease to exist. These are your only options. The message repeated on every frequency. It played on screens across Earth, Mars, and every human colony in the solar system. People stopped what they were doing to listen. Some felt fear. Others felt anger. But most felt something else entirely. They felt ready. In the diplomatic wing of Moon Base Alpha, Ambassador Yuna reviewed the Veltharian message with her team. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a presence that commanded respect. People often underestimated her because of her calm demeanor. They learned quickly not to make that mistake twice. They expect us to panic, one of her aides said. Every species they have conquered responded with either immediate surrender or desperate, disorganized resistance. Yuna nodded slowly. Then we should give them a response they will remember. She prepared a message herself. It was short, direct, without any diplomatic softening. She recorded it personally and sent it to Admiral Kyung for approval. Kyung watched the recording twice. A thin smile crossed his face. Send it, he said. The response went out on all frequencies just as the Veltharian message had. Every ship in the enemy fleet received it simultaneously. The message contained no threats, no begging, no negotiation. Just one sentence spoken in Yuna's steady voice. One final caution from Earth. Leave now, or perish. On the Veltharian flagship, the War Master listened to the human response. He was a towering figure, his species naturally large and covered in thick armored skin. He had led conquest fleets for 60 years. He had heard many last words from dying civilizations. He began to laugh. It was a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the bridge of his ship. His officers joined in the laughter. They warn us, the War Master said between laughs. 800 ships warn 10,000. This species has courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. When we conquer them, I will ensure the survivors are treated well. Such bravery should not be completely crushed. His tactical officer brought up holographic displays of human military capabilities. The intelligence was thorough. The Veltharian Empire had been watching humanity for decades, preparing for this moment. Their technology is adequate but not exceptional, the tactical officer reported. Their ships use standard fusion drives. Their weapons are plasma-based with some missile systems. Their shields are comparable to what we faced from the Korthan species 20 years ago. And we destroyed the Korthan in 3 days, the War Master noted. How long for the humans? With our numerical advantage, perhaps 5 days for complete orbital control. 2 weeks for total planetary subjugation. The War Master nodded, satisfied. Begin the advance. Maintain formation Delta 7. All ships prepare weapons but do not fire unless fired upon. I want to give them time to reconsider. Perhaps they will see reason when they witness our full might moving toward their world. The massive Veltharian fleet began moving deeper into the solar system. They traveled in perfect military formation, a wall of ships that stretched across the void. Their destination was Earth, but they would sweep through the entire system, securing each planet and moon as they passed. Back on Sentinel-9, Captain Hana watched the enemy fleet begin its advance. Her defense station floated near Neptune's orbit, the first line of human defense. Her 8 ships were positioned strategically around the station. "They are not taking us seriously," Daehyun observed. "Good," Hana replied. "Let them underestimate us." "Lieutenant Minji, are your fighters ready?" Across the communication line, a young pilot's voice came through clearly. "Valkyrie Squadron standing by, Captain. All pilots are in their cockpits. We are ready to launch on your command." Hana looked at the display showing the approaching enemy fleet. They moved with confidence, with certainty of victory. They had conquered 47 civilizations. They expected to conquer a 48th. "All ships, this is Captain Hana," she broadcast to her small fleet. "Hold position. Do not fire until my command. Remember your training. Remember why we are here." She switched to a private channel with Admiral Kyung. "They are coming, sir." They ignored the warning. There was a long pause before Kyung responded. His voice carried a weight of sadness mixed with grim determination. "Then we proceed with the plan. Hana, you know what to do. Make them regret not listening." "Yes, sir." Hana closed the channel and looked at her crew. They were young, most of them. They had trained their entire lives for this moment. Humanity had prepared for this day for 200 years, ever since they first reached the stars and discovered they were not alone in the universe. The Veltharian fleet continued its approach, unaware that they had made the greatest mistake in their empire's 300-year history. They had been warned. They had been given a chance to leave. They chose to ignore it. Now they would learn why humanity only gave one warning. The Veltharian fleet reached Saturn's orbit 3 days after entering the solar system. They had moved slowly, deliberately giving humanity time to reconsider their foolish defiance. The War Master expected a surrender message at any moment. Instead, he found Captain Hana waiting for him. Her defense station hung in space like a metal moon, surrounded by her small fleet of ships. 8 vessels against his forward battle group of 2,000. The War Master almost felt sorry for them. "All ships advance and eliminate the human defense position," he commanded. "Try to disable rather than destroy. I want prisoners who can tell us about Earth's military structure." The Veltharian ships moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons powered up, energy readings spiking across the electromagnetic spectrum. They had done this 1,000 times before against 100 different enemies. Then the human ships vanished. "Report," the War Master demanded. His sensor officer stared at his console in confusion. "Sir, the human ships are..." "They are everywhere and nowhere. I am reading 8 ships, but they appear in multiple locations simultaneously." "Explain clearly." "I cannot, sir. Our sensors show the same 8 ships in dozens of positions at once. It is as if they exist in multiple places in the same moment." On Sentinel-9, Captain Hana allowed herself a small smile. "Activate quantum displacement drives," she had ordered minutes before. "Let them see what real technology looks like." Commander Daehyun monitored the tactical display. "Their sensors cannot track us properly. They are trying to target positions where we were seconds ago." The quantum displacement drive was humanity's greatest achievement. It allowed ships to exist in a state of quantum uncertainty, occupying multiple tactical positions simultaneously until the moment they chose to fire. An enemy could not target what existed in multiple places at once. "All ships begin attack pattern Alpha," Hana commanded. "Show them what 8 ships can do." The human vessels seemed to materialize out of nowhere, firing precisely targeted shots before disappearing again. Each shot found its mark. Veltharian shields flared and failed. Hulls ruptured. Ships began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. The War Master watched in growing disbelief as his forward ships died one by one. "All vessels spread out. Random evasive patterns. Saturate the area with weapons fire." The Veltharian fleet opened fire with thousands of weapons. Energy beams and missiles filled the void. Surely something would hit the phantom human ships. But the humans danced between the attacks, phasing in and out of normal space with impossible precision. Where the Veltharians fired, the humans were not. Where the humans appeared, the Veltharians died. Lieutenant Minji led Valkyrie Squadron into the chaos. Her fighter was small, fast and equipped with the same quantum drive technology as the larger ships. She flew through the Veltharian formation like a ghost, her weapons striking with surgical precision. "Valkyrie 2 on your left," she called out. "Big one trying to flank. I see him." Taking the shot. Her wingman's fighter appeared beside a Veltharian cruiser, fired a single missile into its engine core, then vanished before return fire could touch her. The cruiser exploded seconds later. The battle raged for 6 hours. The humans moved like water, flowing around enemy attacks and striking where the enemy was weakest. The Veltharians fought with increasing desperation, unable to understand how such a small force was destroying them. On Mars, Dr. Suji watched the battle data streaming in real time. She was the lead scientist behind the quantum displacement technology. Her team had spent 40 years developing it, testing it, perfecting it. Now she watched it perform exactly as designed. "The energy expenditure is within acceptable parameters," one of her assistants reported. "All ships report full operational capacity." Suji nodded. "Good, this is only the beginning. They need to see what we can do before we show them what we have prepared." When the battle finally ended, 400 Veltharian ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had suffered no losses. Not one ship, not one fighter, not one pilot. Captain Hana broadcast a message to the remaining Veltharian forces. Her voice was calm, steady, without anger or triumph. "You were told to leave. This is your last chance." The War Master received her message on his flagship. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to reorganize the fleet, to tend to the wounded, to make sense of what had happened. He had lost 400 ships to 8. 400, his tactical officer approached cautiously. "War Master, I recommend we withdraw and regroup. This technology is beyond our current understanding. We need time to develop countermeasures." "No." The War Master's voice was hard as stone. "We do not retreat. We do not show weakness. The Veltharian Empire has never fled from battle, and we will not start now." He opened a channel to all his ships. "All vessels, full advance. Maximum speed. We will overwhelm them with numbers. For every ship they can be, we have 1,000 real ships. Quantum tricks cannot defeat raw power." The massive fleet surged forward, abandoning their careful formation for an all-out charge. They would sweep past the human defenders and strike directly at Earth. Let the humans play their tricks in empty space while the Empire burned their homeworld. But Captain Hana had expected this. She had studied Veltharian tactics for years. She knew their pride would not allow retreat after suffering such losses. "All ships withdraw to Jupiter," she ordered. "Execute retreat pattern Gamma." The human ships pulled back, moving deeper into the solar system. The Veltharians pursued, sensing victory. They thought the humans were running scared. As the fleets passed Saturn, small objects detached from the planet's rings. Thousands of them. They looked like nothing more than ice chunks, debris from the ancient formation of the solar system. Then they activated. The quantum mines had been placed there decades ago, waiting for exactly this moment. Each mine contained a small quantum destabilization device. When activated, they created pockets of unstable spacetime. The pursuing Veltharian fleet ran straight into the minefield. Ships that entered the destabilized zones found their own drives turning against them. Space folded, time stretched. Matter compressed. Dozens of ships simply ceased to exist, crushed out of reality by the warped physics around them. Others were torn apart as different parts of their hulls experienced time at different rates. Still others found themselves displaced millions of kilometers away, separated from their fleet. The War Master watched his formation disintegrate into chaos. "What is happening? Where are my ships?" His sensor officer could barely speak. "Sir, space itself is attacking us. The fabric of reality is wrong. We need to stop advancing." But momentum carried the fleet forward. More ships entered the destabilized zones. More ships died in ways that violated every known law of physics. By the time the Veltharian fleet managed to halt its advance, another 300 ships were gone. The War Master stood on his bridge in stunned silence, staring at the casualty reports. 700 ships. He had lost 700 ships and had not even reached the inner solar system. Captain Hana watched from Jupiter's orbit as the Veltharian fleet struggled to reorganize. Her 8 ships had grown to 20 now, reinforcements arriving from deeper defensive positions. "Message from Admiral Kyung," Daehyun reported. "He asks if we need additional support." Hana shook her head. Tell the Admiral we have the situation under control. Ask him to keep our main fleet in reserve. Something tells me we will need them later." She looked at the damaged, confused enemy fleet. They had been given 2 chances to leave. 2 warnings. They had ignored both. "Prepare for Phase 2, Hana ordered. Let them come deeper. Let them see what else we have waiting." The Veltharian Empire's intelligence division worked without rest. After losing 700 ships to an enemy they did not understand, the War Master demanded answers. His cyber warfare teams launched attack after attack against human computer systems, searching for any weakness. Finally, 3 days after the disaster at Saturn, they found something. A poorly protected database on a research station orbiting Europa. The encryption was basic, almost deliberately simple. Within hours, they had cracked it and begun downloading files. "War Master, we have accessed human military records," the intelligence chief reported. His voice carried excitement for the first time since the fleet entered the system. "Downloading everything now. Ship specifications, weapons capabilities, defensive positions, everything." The War Master leaned forward in his command chair. "Show me." Data flooded across the holographic displays. Ship blueprints, technical manuals, strategic assessments, personnel files. The intelligence chief sorted through it quickly, pulling up the most relevant information. "Sir, these records indicate that human expansion into space began only 200 years ago. They have colonies on 7 moons and 3 planets within their system. Their military fleet numbers 842 ships, with another 200 in various stages of construction." "We knew most of this already," the War Master growled. "What about their quantum technology? What are its limitations?" The intelligence chief pulled up more files. According to these records, the quantum displacement drives require enormous power. Ships can only maintain quantum states for limited durations before needing to recharge. Their effective combat time is approximately 6 hours before they must withdraw. This was useful information. The War Master nodded slowly. "Continue." "But sir, there is something else." The intelligence chief's voice became uncertain. "The database contains information about human colony structures. Every colony, every moon, every station. They all have similar layouts. Research facilities, manufacturing centers, agricultural domes. Standard colony configuration," the War Master said dismissively. "What of it?" "Sir, I recommend you look at the construction specifications yourself." The War Master examined the files carefully. At first he saw nothing unusual. Then he began noticing details. The research facilities had unusually thick walls. The agricultural domes were built on top of massive underground structures. The manufacturing centers had power outputs far exceeding normal requirements. His blood ran cold as understanding dawned. "These are not colonies," he said quietly. "These are fortresses." On Moonbase Alpha, Admiral Kyung received notification that the Veltharians had accessed the database on Europa. He smiled grimly. "They took the bait," he said to his command staff. "How much did they download?" "Everything we wanted them to see, sir," an officer reported. "They now have access to complete specifications for all our colony installations. And they will realize what those installations actually are." "Yes, sir." "Within the hour, I would estimate." Kyung pulled up a system-wide tactical display. It showed the location of every human installation in the solar system. Mars with its vast underground complexes, Europa with its ocean research stations, Titan with its atmospheric processing plants, Ganymede with its mining operations, and dozens of smaller facilities scattered throughout the asteroid belt. Every single one was a weapon. Humanity had not colonized the solar system for resources or living space. They had colonized it for defense. Every base, every station, every dome was designed from the beginning to be both a home and a fortress. The research facilities studied weapons technology. The manufacturing centers built munitions. The agricultural domes concealed missile silos. For 200 years, humanity had prepared for this exact scenario. They had studied the wreckage of destroyed civilizations found drifting in space. They had seen what happened to species that were not ready when hostile aliens arrived. Humanity had decided that would never happen to them. General Taeyang commanded the ground-to-space defense networks from his headquarters. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, his facility alone housed 3,000 missile launchers, 500 energy cannons, and a quantum communications array that could coordinate strikes across the entire solar system. "Admiral Kyung is giving us the green light," his second-in-command reported. "The Veltharians know what we are now. There is no more need for concealment. Taeyang nodded. Activate all defensive systems. Full power to all installations. Send the coordinates to every battery commander. When the enemy enters weapons range, we will light up their sensors like a sun. On the Veltharian flagship, the War Master watched with growing horror as his sensors began detecting weapon signatures across the solar system. Mars was not a research colony. It was a fortress world bristling with enough firepower to destroy a fleet 10 times the size of his. Europa was not a water research station. It was a weapons platform hidden beneath ice. Titan, Ganymede, Callisto, every moon and planet that his intelligence had listed as peaceful colonies, all of them were military installations, and the asteroid belt. The intelligence chief brought up new scans of the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter. The readings made no sense at first. Sir, we are detecting active power signatures in the asteroids. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, and explain. The asteroids are not natural, sir. They have been hollowed out and fitted with drives. They are not rocks. They are missiles. Kinetic kill vehicles. The War Master felt something he had not felt in 60 years of military service. He felt fear. How many? He asked quietly. We cannot get an accurate count, sir. At minimum, 200,000. Possibly as many as 500,000. They are all accelerating now. Current velocity is 0.1 light speed and increasing. Engineer Junho sat in a control room on Earth, watching his creation come to life. He had spent 30 years designing the Prometheus protocol. The idea was simple but terrifying in its execution. Take asteroids, hollow them out, fit them with powerful drives, and accelerate them to relativistic speeds. At 0.3 light speed, an asteroid the size of a house carried enough kinetic energy to destroy a small moon. Humanity had built hundreds of thousands of them, distributed throughout the asteroid belt, waiting for the day when they would be needed. That day had arrived. All kinetic vehicles are launching on schedule, Junho reported to Admiral Kyung. They will reach optimal velocity in 6 hours. After that, nothing in this system will be able to stop them. Back on the Veltharian flagship, the tactical officer was near panic. War Master, we need to retreat. We are trapped in a system filled with weapons we cannot counter. If those kinetic vehicles reach full velocity, our shields will not stop them. The War Master wanted to order retreat. Every instinct told him to run. But there was a problem. Navigation, plot a course back to the quantum tunnel. Maximum speed. The navigation officer worked frantically, then looked up with a pale face. Sir, we cannot. The quantum space routes we use to enter the system have been sealed. Somehow the humans have blocked access. That is impossible. You cannot seal quantum space. Apparently humans can, sir. Dr. Suji stood in her laboratory on Mars, monitoring the quantum space sealing devices her team had activated. They had placed them at every major quantum route in and out of the system. When activated, they created interference patterns that made quantum tunneling impossible. The Veltharian fleet was trapped. Ambassador Yuna appeared on every Veltharian ship's communication system simultaneously. Her calm face looked at them from thousands of screens. When she spoke, her voice carried no anger, no hatred. Just cold, simple fact. You were warned, she said. Twice, you chose to ignore those warnings. Now you are trapped in our system, surrounded by weapons moving at relativistic speeds. Your shields cannot stop kinetic impacts at 0.3 light speed. Your drives cannot outrun them. Your numbers mean nothing against physics. The War Master stared at her image. You planned this. All of it. Yes, Yuna confirmed. For 200 years. We knew someone would come eventually. Someone always does. We made sure we would be ready. What do you want? Surrender. We will negotiate terms. Yuna's expression did not change. We gave you terms already. Leave or perish. You chose perish. Now that choice is final. The transmission ended. The War Master looked around his bridge at his crew. They looked back at him with terrified eyes, waiting for orders he did not have. For the first time in 300 years of conquest, the Veltharian Empire faced an enemy that was not prey. They faced predators who had invited them into a trap and closed the door behind them. The War Master did something unprecedented in Veltharian military history. He opened a communication channel to the human admiral and asked to negotiate. Admiral Kyung's face appeared on the main display. He looked tired, older than his years. His expression held no triumph, only grim determination. I am prepared to discuss terms of surrender, the War Master said. The words felt like poison in his mouth, but he had no choice. My fleet will withdraw. We will leave your system and never return. We will formally recognize human sovereignty and establish a permanent border that we will not cross. Kyung listened in silence. When the War Master finished, the Admiral spoke quietly. No, what do you mean, no? I am offering complete withdrawal. You were given that option, Kyung replied. Twice, both times you refused. We told you to leave or perish. You chose perish. We do not give third chances. The War Master felt his composure crack. You would slaughter us all? We have 9,000 ships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. You would commit genocide? You came here to conquer us, Kyung said, his voice hard. To enslave humanity. To destroy our cities if we resisted. Where was your mercy then? Where was your hesitation? I was following orders. Following protocol. Every species we have encountered. Every species you encountered was not ready, Kyung interrupted. We are. The channel closed. The War Master stood in silence, knowing that death was coming for his fleet, coming in the form of millions of tons of rock accelerated to speeds that made them unstoppable. But he was not ready to die without a fight. All ships, defensive formation Omega. He commanded, position the largest vessels on the outside. Concentrate all shield power to forward sections. Use the smaller ships as point defense. Target the incoming asteroids with every weapon we have. If we cannot escape, we will make them pay for every ship they destroy. The Veltharian fleet reorganized itself near Jupiter's orbit. They chose the location carefully. The gas giant's massive gravity well might help deflect some of the incoming kinetic weapons. It was a desperate hope, but it was all they had. Captain Hana watched from Sentinel-9 as the enemy fleet prepared for the asteroid swarm. Her orders were to maintain distance and observe. The kinetic weapons would do the killing. Her job was to make sure nothing escaped. They are using Jupiter for cover, Commander Daehyun observed. Smart thinking. The gravity will affect trajectory calculations? Not enough to matter, Hana replied. The targeting systems account for gravitational interference. Besides, we planned for this. Engineer Junho built redundancy into the Prometheus protocol. Even if they stop half the asteroids, the other half will be more than enough. The first wave of kinetic weapons arrived 6 hours after launch. They came in like a meteor storm. Thousands of artificial asteroids moving at 0.25 light speed. The Veltharian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams lanced out trying to vaporize the incoming rocks. Missiles streaked toward them trying to knock them off course. Point defense cannons fired streams of projectiles in desperate attempts to shatter them. Some asteroids were destroyed. A few were deflected, but most came through the defensive fire untouched. At relativistic speeds, they hit like the wrath of an angry god. The first impact struck a Veltharian battleship dead center. The ship's shields flared for a fraction of a second before the kinetic energy overwhelmed them completely. The asteroid punched through the hull like it was paper. The ship exploded from the inside out, torn apart by forces that nothing could survive. More impacts followed. Dozens, hundreds. Each one destroyed a ship. The Veltharian fleet tried to spread out, but there was nowhere to run. The asteroids came from all directions, their trajectories precisely calculated to ensure coverage across the entire fleet formation. Commander Hyun sat in a control room deep beneath Earth's surface. He commanded humanity's most terrible weapon, the one they had hoped never to use. It was called Godstrike, and it weaponized gravity itself. Admiral Kyung has authorized Godstrike activation, his second-in-command reported. The enemy fleet is concentrated near Jupiter. This is our best opportunity. Hyun had spent 15 years studying the weapon's effects. He knew what it would do. The memory of the test firing still haunted his dreams. Activate the gravitational compression array, he ordered. Target Jupiter's gravity well. Amplify local space-time curvature by a factor of 50. The Godstrike weapon came online. It was not a gun or a missile. It was a network of quantum field generators positioned throughout the solar system. When activated in concert, they could manipulate gravity on a massive scale. Near Jupiter, space itself began to warp. The Veltharian ships felt it first as a strange pull on their hulls. Sensors screamed warnings. Gravity readings spiked to impossible levels. Then the real horror began. Jupiter's gravity well, already immense, suddenly intensified. Space-time folded around the gas giant like a fist closing. The Veltharian ships, already struggling against Jupiter's natural pull, found themselves caught in gravitational forces that crushed matter itself. Ships were pulled together, smashed into each other by invisible hands. hulls compressed, metal folded. Some vessels were literally squeezed into spheres of ultra-dense matter before anyone could even scream. The War Master's flagship was far enough from the center of the effect to survive, but he watched in horror as hundreds of his ships were destroyed in seconds. The gravitational compression lasted only 3 minutes before Hyun deactivated it. It had been enough. When the effects faded, 600 Veltharian ships were simply gone. Not destroyed in the traditional sense. They had been compressed out of existence by gravity that should not have been possible. Lieutenant Minji led her fighter squadron through the chaos. Her job was to pick off any ships that tried to break away from the main fleet. She flew with cold efficiency, her weapons finding targets with mechanical precision. Valkyrie lead. I have 3 cruisers trying to escape toward Saturn, her wingman called out. Intercept and destroy, Minji replied. Nothing gets away. Her squadron moved to cut off the fleeing ships. The Veltharians saw them coming and opened fire, but the human fighters phased in and out of normal space. They were impossible to target, impossible to hit. Minji's missile struck the first cruiser's engine core. She watched it explode without emotion. Another target. Another kill. She had trained for this her entire life. Her instructors had told her stories of the destroyed civilizations humanity had found in deep space. Species that had been peaceful, trusting, unprepared, all of them extinct now, wiped out by predators like the Veltharians. She would not let that happen to humanity. None of them would. The battle continued for 18 hours. Wave after wave of kinetic weapons struck the Veltharian fleet. The Godstrike weapon activated 3 more times, each use destroying hundreds of ships. Human fighter squadrons hunted down anything that tried to escape. When it finally ended, only 2,000 Veltharian ships remained operational out of the original 10,000. The War Master's flagship was heavily damaged but still functional. He sat on his bridge, surrounded by dead crew members and broken equipment. A communication request came through. He accepted it because he had nothing left to lose. It was not Admiral Kyung this time. It was Ambassador Yuna. She looked at the War Master with something that might have been pity. You can still send one final message to your empire, she said. You have enough functioning ships to record what happened here, to show them what awaits any species that threatens humanity. The War Master laughed bitterly. You want me to be your messenger? To spread fear of Earth across the galaxy? We want you to spread truth, Yuna corrected. You came here believing humans were weak, that we would be easy prey. You were wrong. We gave you every chance to avoid this. You chose not to take those chances. What now? The War Master asked. Will you destroy the rest of us? Yuna was quiet for a moment. That depends. The next wave of kinetic weapons will arrive in 40 minutes. Admiral Kyung can order them to disperse, or he can let them continue on their current trajectories. Your remaining ships will not survive. What do you want from me? I want you to return home, Yuna said. I want you to tell your empire what happened here. I want you to tell every species you have conquered that humanity is watching, that we know what you have done to them, that if they rise up against you, we will support them. The War Master stared at her. You would start a galactic war? No, Yuna replied. You started it when you came here. We are finishing it. The War Master made his choice. He would live and return home, carrying the story of humanity's power with him. It was a bitter choice, but it was the only path to survival. He ordered his surviving ships to power down their weapons and broadcast surrender. Codes Admiral Kyung received the surrender aboard Moonbase, Alpha. He looked at the tactical display showing the remaining Veltharian fleet, 2,000 ships from 10,000. It had been a slaughter, but he felt no joy in it. Order all kinetic weapons to disperse, he commanded. Signal Captain Hana to establish a safe corridor. The Veltharians are leaving. Around Earth, people watched the news broadcasts in silence. They had won, but victory felt heavy. Everyone understood what had nearly happened. If the Veltharians had succeeded, if humanity had not been prepared, Earth would have been conquered. Their families enslaved. Their civilization destroyed. General Taeyang stood on the surface of Mars for the first time in 3 years. He had spent so long underground commanding weapon systems that he had forgotten what the sky looked like. Even through his helmet visor, the stars were beautiful. All defensive systems are returning to standby mode, his second-in-command reported. The Veltharians are gathering at the edge of the system. They will be ready to depart within 12 hours. Good, Taeyang said quietly. Let them go. Let them carry the message home. But Ambassador Yuna had one more message to send. She had spent the last 3 days working with her team, crafting a communication that would be heard across multiple star systems, not just by the Veltharian Empire, but by every species they had conquered. On her authorization, Earth's quantum communication arrays activated. The message would be received simultaneously by 47 different civilizations, all of them living under Veltharian occupation. Yuna appeared on the recording herself. She sat in a simple chair against a plain background. No military uniforms behind her. No weapons on display. Just one human woman speaking calmly to the galaxy. To the people of the Korthan worlds, the Sylvian colonies, the Netheri systems, and all other civilizations under Veltharian rule, humanity sends you this message. We know of your oppression. We know of your suffering. We know that 300 years ago the Veltharian Empire took your freedom. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today, a Veltharian fleet came to our system. They came to conquer us as they conquered you. They were 10,000 strong, and they believed we would fall as easily as others before us. They were wrong. The message included footage from the battle. The quantum displacement drives in action. The asteroid swarm destroying hundreds of ships. The God-strike weapon crushing vessels with gravity itself. Every devastating moment, recorded and shared. The Veltharian War Master is returning home with 2,000 ships. Yuna continued. 8,000 of his fleet will never return. They died because they refused to heed our warning. They died because they believed strength gave them the right to enslave others. Her expression became fierce, intense in a way that would resonate across a dozen different species. Humanity will not conquer you. We will not replace one empire with another, but we will support you if you choose to free yourselves. We will provide technology, weapons, strategic assistance. We will stand beside any species that rises against oppression. The Veltharian Empire's time of unchallenged rule is over. The message ended with a simple statement. They were warned. They did not listen. Do not make the same mistake. The transmission went out across light years of space. Within hours, it was being broadcast on underground networks throughout occupied territories. Within days, the first rebellions began. On the Korthan homeworld, resistance fighters who had hidden in the mountains for 3 generations suddenly found themselves receiving encrypted messages from Earth. Technical specifications for weapons, tactical advice, offers of support. In the Sylvian colonies, secret meetings were held. Leaders who had never dared hope for freedom began planning coordinated uprisings. The Netheri, whose civilization had been conquered 200 years ago, started sabotaging Veltharian military installations. The War Master watched these reports arrive as his battered fleet made its way slowly out of human space. Ambassador Yuna had not just defeated him. She had ignited a fire that would consume the Empire. Captain Hana escorted the Veltharian fleet to the edge of the solar system. Her ships maintained their distance, weapons ready but not aimed. This was a gesture of respect for an honorable surrender, even if the enemy deserved no honor. They are preparing to open a quantum tunnel, Daehyun reported. They will be gone within the hour. Hana nodded. She felt tired, bone-deep weary in a way that rest would not fix. She had done her duty. She had defended her home. But she had also participated in the destruction of 8,000 ships and the death of everyone aboard them. War is not glorious, her instructor had told her years ago. It is necessary sometimes, but never glorious. Remember that. She remembered. The Veltharian fleet opened its quantum tunnel and departed. The last ship disappeared from human sensors, taking with it the survivors who would tell the story of what happened when the Empire tried to conquer Earth. On Moonbase Alpha, Admiral Kyung stood before the United Earth Council. They had requested his report immediately after the battle ended. Now he stood in the council chamber, facing the representatives of 6 billion humans. The Veltharian threat has been neutralized, he reported formally. Our casualties were minimal. 17 personnel killed in combat, 34 wounded. No ships lost. The council members sat in silence processing this information. Finally, the council chairperson spoke. Admiral, you have won a great victory for humanity, but you have also started something we may not be able to control. The Veltharian Empire will not forgive this. Other aggressive species will see us as a threat. We may have made ourselves a target. Kyung met her eyes steadily. With respect, Madam Chair, we have always been a target. Every peaceful species is a target to predators like the Veltharians. The only difference is that now everyone knows we have teeth. Another council member spoke up. The messages Ambassador Yuna sent to occupied territories, offering support for rebellions. This could destabilize the entire region of space. Good, Kyung replied bluntly. Stability built on slavery deserves to be destabilized. The council chairman sighed. You are dismissed, Admiral. The council needs to discuss our next steps. Kyung saluted and left. He knew the politicians would debate and worry. That was their job. His job had been to defend Earth, and he had done it. Dr. Suji received a commendation for her work on quantum displacement technology. Engineer Junho was awarded medals for the Prometheus Protocol. Commander Hyun received recognition for his operation of the Godstrike system. Captain Hana was promoted and given command of an entire battle group. But all of them knew that the real work was just beginning. Humanity could no longer pretend to be peaceful explorers. They had revealed themselves as they truly were, a species that had weaponized caution itself. A civilization that had spent 200 years preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. Now the galaxy knew. 6 weeks after the battle, the first alien delegation arrived at Earth. They came not from the Veltharian Empire but from the Korthan Resistance. 3 ships, small and damaged, requesting permission to enter human space. Ambassador Yuna met them personally. The Korthan delegates were tall, thin beings with forearms and large eyes. They moved with the careful wariness of people who had lived under oppression for too long. Their leader spoke through a translation device. We come seeking the alliance you offered. Our people are rising against the Veltharians. We need your help. Yuna smiled gently. You shall have it. Welcome to Earth. Over the following months, more delegations arrived. 5 species sent representatives. They all told similar stories of oppression, of lost freedom, of hope rekindled by humanity's message. Earth began sharing technology carefully, not weapons of mass destruction, but defensive systems, quantum drives to make their ships harder to target, shield technology to protect their colonies, communication systems to coordinate their resistance movements. The Veltharian Empire found itself fighting wars on a dozen fronts. Their forces, spread thin across their vast territory, struggled to maintain control. The War Master, stripped of his rank and living in disgrace, watched the Empire crumble and knew it was his fault for attacking Earth. 1 year after the battle, the Veltharian Empire's council made a formal declaration. They recognized human sovereignty. They established borders they would not cross. They began withdrawing from some of their conquered territories, unable to hold them against the coordinated rebellions. It was not peace, not yet. But it was a beginning. Captain Hana stood on Sentinel-9 looking out at the stars. Her station had been repaired and upgraded. New defensive platforms had been built throughout the solar system. Humanity would never again be unprepared. Beside her, Daehyun reviewed reports from the outer colonies. Construction of the new defense stations is ahead of schedule. We will have complete coverage of the heliopause within 2 years. Good, Hana replied. But we cannot rely only on defense forever. Eventually, we will need to explore beyond our system, to meet other species, to build alliances. Can we trust anyone out there?